Hello and welcome to Tripod, the audio advertising podcast. In this season's last episode, we look at how AI technology could change the way audio campaigns are booked and created. In this episode, we are talking to a gathering of human intelligence about artificial intelligence. And I want to touch on, and I want to ask you, go around the table and ask you how you think AI is going to change the way, first of all, audio is planned and bought.
Yeah, I think this is a difficult one, isn't it? Because we're kind of, you think about, well, it depends how you define AI and how things are planned and bought, if you know what I mean. We obviously already have a world of programmatic advertising, which is somewhat AI-led, you could argue, in terms of like it's already looking at kind of taking your advert, looking at data points and automatically serving it based on those data points into that space. Creatively, if I come back to that kind of element, yes, I think like it's a little bit scary, I think, I suppose. I've seen examples of TV adverts that have been created in the AI space by AI tools and stuff like this, which look like great TV adverts for a new car, for example, and stuff like that. You're kind of recreating that kind of like those great landscapes and seeing an amazing new car drive through them and stuff like this. As a consumer, because you know AI is potentially behind these things more and more, you're more educated in that space, do they actually seem authentic? If you lose that authenticity in terms of that kind of, I suppose, that human authenticity from a creative or advertising point of view, does it then kind of lose its kind of connection with the consumer itself, I suppose?
Yeah, you're starting to get into the creative
bit philosophical,
side,
but yeah.
Yeah, but on the media side, before we move on, and we will talk about AI and creative a bit more in a moment, but on the media side, Elon Musk says we'll all be out of a job soon. None of us will have to work. Is there going to come a stage where AI can plan and book a radio campaign? Do you think, Howard?
I think, to allude what Tom was saying about programmatic, yes, there is. But media is all about great ideas over and above. So let's say you have your base level of 30-second airtime, for want of a better expression. But that means there's no differential between what I do as an individual, it's much as my expertise versus Tom's expertise for his clients, and our relationships we have with the media owners. So I guess maybe the airtime buying may get more sophisticated, but then who's selecting where that airtime goes? We spoke about another episode about the placement of spots and how they're optimized. I know through my experience where I should be, and my own research, where I should be placing those spots. A machine might do it for me, but I'm up against Tom's AA machine. We may have the same technology. The difference is that is the difference between me and Tom in terms of our own expertise or another individual. And I think we spoke about doing bigger and better opportunities with radio stations or with audio platforms, and that's a human interaction because it's briefing and it's collaboration, it's meeting, it's sparking ideas. And creating an opportunity for an advertiser or a client. But I could see maybe where the automation of buying pure spots may develop or get more sophisticated. But certainly I don't think, predicting now, that it's a human business in that sense, in terms of creating. A machine cannot create, I don't think, what a human can create in terms of that interaction and briefing and that experience that I just think cannot be taught, and it's who and sometimes in these, when you're doing planning and buying, in terms of getting access to the right opportunities.
And a machine, I can tell you because I've tried it, can create a radio ad. Should a machine be creating a radio ad? I mean, you touched on this briefly, Tom. It's a question of being genuine, isn't it? And communicating with human beings using the voices of other human beings. Can we tell the difference? I think we probably can between an AI voice and a human voice, but it is developing apace. Are we in danger of losing sight of what really matters, do you think?
I think Tom nailed it when he said about authenticity, but it is a frightening space for audio, for voices, I think, in general, because, I've worked with a company based in the US and I had a 2-hour long meeting with them of them recording me saying various statements, and then the next day they sent me a copy of my voice, and I could pump in whatever I wanted to type into my screen, and it would give me an audio file of me saying that afterwards. So, didn't necessarily fool me nor my wife, but it's
luckily
it's not yet. That's not to say that these things are gonna 2 years ago you would never have even been able to dreamt of doing that. So within 2 years from now, what you can achieve is probably going to be even crazier. I mean, I've even listened to a podcast that is been hosted by Scarlett Johansson talking about her life and her career, and the whole thing has been generated by an AI voice of her voice, because obviously she's a very well-known actress. There's a lot of content out there for an AI to be able to replicate of her own voice and to be able to create that. So that's here and that's now. For us to be able to deal with a client or a brand and say, okay, we can have Stephen Fry read your ad, but it's not necessarily going to be Stephen Fry in a studio. I'm just going to type it into a machine and Stephen Fry's voice going to come out of it.
And then Stephen Fry's lawyers will be on the phone.
Exactly. Or does Stephen Fry...
Or he's licensed his voice and
Exactly.
he's quite happy for people to use it.
But then as a client, where are we going to get to? For me, I would rather pay a premium, perhaps, to have the real Stephen Fry in a studio doing it in his inimitable style. But we might get to a point where clients are just demanding, no, I just want Stephen Fry, and no one's going to tell the difference anyway, and that's a scary thought, I think.
I would also add to that, I think from a listener perspective, we go back to that, listening to the radio station because of the presenters, and you know who they are, and you can see them in magazines, see them online, their personalities. You may be a TV personality or cross over with different media, but it's them, and therefore you've chosen to listen, an appointment to listen to that show particularly because of the presenters, and you have a affiliation with them. You understand them. They might be your age or talk the way you do or talk about the same things that you do. And I don't think from a programming perspective, AI can replicate that. I don't think, because it's not real. But I guess an overnight presenter. A lot of radio stations are automatically tracked in terms of their music and how it works. Then maybe you could see a role for an overnight presenter. But then, conversely saying that, overnight presenters have a lot of affiliation with their listeners because there aren't many people around at that time of night, and listeners have numbers and all that sort of thing in terms of... so that's the connection, and that's the beauty of the medium. And I think programmably, if you take that away, you're just missing that connection that a listener has with it. It's just like, well, I might as well just listen to a recorded, message.
Yeah, there is on Spotify, there is a virtual DJ. There is, and that will speak to you and just play you music based on your habits.
And call you by name.
And call me by name.
Yeah.
I did try it out, and the first time I tried it, it's like, hey, Matt, well into dance music, obviously. One of my favourite dance music groups is 808 State, a Manchester-based acid house band group, whatever you could call them. Hey Matt, how you doing? This is Spotify DJ. I'm going to play one of your favorite tracks from 808 State. And it was like, well, it's 808 State actually, so not today AI.
No.
First heard
but
one.
I suppose what is the feeling that they feel they need to have a presenter or a AI DJ talk to you in that way, because they're trying to recreate something that's already kind of they know is important. They're creating that affiliation with the presenter, or trying to recreate that kind of the thing we all believe in radio in terms of that connection with the presenter how authentic that interaction is, basically.
But the cost of the talent in producing an ad is the single biggest cost.
Mm-hmm.
And so if a client has a way of bypassing that, and they want to save money, then they're going to say, can I have an AI voice, please?
Yeah, I mean, there's an entire generation of younger people now who main engagement thing on their smartphones is through something like TikTok, and all this content that's being created on there and being voiced is a lot of it is there are a lot of AI voices on there that have become like the voices of TikTok. So there is an entire generation growing up they're going to be very used to being spoken to in this way and not really care. So I think it's something to kind of I don't want to use the word worry so much, but it is very interesting to see how especially famous celebrities will potentially license their voices, and we could get to a point where you could have Elvis doing your read.
I know a lot of voice artists whose voices have been hijacked without permission and without any licensing. So it's not a good time to be a voiceover artist, I wouldn't have thought, is it?
Well, yeah, and this is what we've just seen, obviously, with the actors and the writers and stuff like this. So I suppose in a way, if we don't want it to happen, we need to stand up and make our voices heard. But I can definitely sort of
real ones.
I think we're definitely going to get to a place where there's going to be a combination of both, isn't there? I think in the immediate future, where there will some AI elements will creep into that creative process.
And I also think it will come down to effectiveness. I think if the AI, it just in terms of test and trials, if the voice is as effective as a real person's voice, then the advertiser might say, well, I'm going to go with the AI because it hasn't disrupted my results, and so be it.
I mean, I think also as well, we shouldn't get away from the fact that AI, as scary as it is, it's also a brilliant tool and brilliant at, you touched on it, Howard, in terms of AI. It's not necessarily creative in that sense. That the only information and things that it can pull is stuff that already exists. It's not got that human creation element yet. And I think it'll be an even scarier place when we get to that point. However, being able to use it as a tool is really, really helpful, for thought starters and things like that. I've certainly used it. I host my own podcast. I interview people all the time, and it's just being able to, instead of sitting down and really thinking about the questions I want to ask someone, you just pump into ChatGPT. Here's the person I'm interviewing. Give me 20 questions based on their life and career. I'd probably say 18 of them are probably very generic, but there will be one or two in there. It'll be like, oh right, okay, that's a good thought starting place. I won't obviously use it verbatim, but then that will carry you on. So in terms of just having that creative aspect to all of it, I think is very useful.
Yeah, we already use it as a thought starter for copywriting sometimes, but we touched on this in the last season, in our last episode of season 1, and Kieran Murphy came up with a very interesting point. Is if in this world of AI, there are some AI ads out there, or the majority of ads, let's say, in the future are AI, the client that goes for real human voices is going to have extra cut through, I would have thought, wouldn't you?
Well, and then, let's play that out exponentially as well. If you get to a point where all of the advertising and the creative is AI, are then the people going to be interacting on the client side? Are they going to be AI also? And then it just blows up even further from there. But like you say, to have that differentiator, maybe it will be a badge of honor in the future where it's like, actually, we've got a real human personality here, a real three-dimensional being that is, either voicing your ad or appearing in your ad. That could be a real point of difference. And like Tom said about, that actors' strike and the writers' strike that went on recently, I think Hollywood has kind of woken up to that fact. They don't want to be all replaced by digital doubles, as much as that could happen. So I think it will be hopefully an interesting space where people will be really bringing it to life, and you could have Elvis appearing in your movie with a real life actor of the day. I
suppose it was the issue as well. Nothing's original, is it? Because at the moment AI draws on stuff that's already out there to kind of create something. So it's not creating an original. It's taking information and things that are already out there and just creating a version of that, if you know what I mean. So, I think originality will obviously be something that in this AI world will obviously be looked probably like will help you stand out massively, won't it, if you know what I mean.
Tom Ballum from Mindshare, Matt Rouse from Octave, and Trisonic's media director Howard Bareham on how the future might look as AI becomes more prominent in the world of audio advertising. I'm Matt Hopper, and you've been listening to Tripod, the audio advertising podcast from Trisonic. There are 2 whole seasons of episodes full of useful information and advice for audio advertisers, so do check out some of our other episodes on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have any questions arising from this episode, or you'd like to talk to us about audio advertising, email info@trisonic.co.uk or visit our website at trisonic.co.uk.